If you had a tool that could change a hopeless situation or change your physical reality into a miracle in literally 1 nanosecond, would you be brave enough to use it? Logic says no, but today's guest says she has the proof. Coming up, I'm speaking with a woman who says a 10th dimensional tool was gifted to humanity specifically for these chaotic times. And later in this episode, she's going to share a specific real life story where she used this energy to create a 180-degree shift in reality that defied all explanation. If you are ready to stop just surviving the chaos and start bending it, if you are an empath tired of coping and ready to start creating, do not go anywhere, stay right there. We are about to upgrade your reality and your world. Welcome back to Awaken Your Authentic Self. I'm your host, Jessica Rooks. And as always, thank you for stepping into this sacred space with me today. To all my soul-led seekers and truth tellers tuning in, take a deep breath. You have arrived exactly where you are meant to be. Today's conversation is a special one. We are bridging the gap between the grounded world we live in and the high-frequency energies that are available to support us. My guest today describes herself as a midwife to the afterlife, an intuitive dowser, and a spiritual teacher who has dedicated over 25 years to personal and planetary evolution. But her life took a radical turn in 2010 when a series of visions introduced her to a powerful energetic tool, the Infinity Wave. She is the author of The Infinity Wave, Mastering the Art of Love, Compassion and Flow, and she is here to teach us how to navigate these turbulent times with grace. Please welcome to the show, Hope Fitzgerald. Hope, I am so honored to have you here today.
Oh, Jessica, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you and your listeners.
Thank you. Well, let's get started and dive in. Hope, I want to start at that pivotal moment that you mentioned. Before 2010, you were privately devoted to spirituality, but working as a counselor. Then these visions upended your life and introduced the Infinity Wave. Can you take us back to that moment? And why do you think this specific tool, this 10th dimensional energy, was gifted to humanity now? And why is it essential for the chaos we're currently navigating?
Very good question. Well, at the time, I was full of questions like that. And I was invited, actually instructed, when I started asking about these visions and what they meant and why me and all of that. I was told that this tool, this Infinity Wave, it's a word, it's a term we can call something much bigger. And just so people have a sense of what it looks like, what we can think about it looking like, at least, picture a figure eight made of flowing water. And it doesn't have to be up and down. It can be side to side, or it could even be three-dimensional like an hourglass. It is just a symbol, like we have many symbols that represent things that are much bigger.
Right.
So you can think of an ankh or a cross or a Star of David or many, many symbols that we have that we know represent something ineffable even. So the Infinity Wave can both be taken literally in that we imagine that figure eight of flowing water when we work with it. But it's also figuratively because, as I said, it represents this bigger energy, an energy that is infinite love and compassion. Now, it is, when it arrived, I was told to teach about it. I didn't know what the heck it was, so I wasn't really eager to do that.
Right.
But as I ventured forth anyway, because you really can't say no to spirit ultimately.
I know that.
I mean, you can, but
It
at your
doesn't fare well
peril.
for you, exactly.
So as I went forth, I started to learn about it as I was teaching it, which is a very interesting position to be in
Yeah, I can
and not
imagine.
entirely comfortable for me,
Yeah.
because it required a great deal of trust. As it unfolded and I started to teach and I started to receive the teachings, which were in the form of practices, meditations, channelings, which I had not done up until then,
Mhm.
I learned more about it. And the reason that it said it was here, the very first vision, which was of a giant wave, which came to me as I was walking across my living room, the first vision said it represented a push of evolution that was coming to the planet. It would be wrapping around the earth over the course of 2011 and anchoring in at the end of that year.
Hmm.
And this was something for us to start playing with, to start working with, so that when things got, waves got bigger, crashing on the shore,
Right.
we would be able to handle it better. So those were sort of the initial clues that I had that partially answers your question, that there was and is, we are in the midst of, I believe, and have been for a few years now, a push of evolution that is building and building momentum.
Absolutely.
And what they said was, if you resist, you things will not go as well for you as if you stay in love and compassion. In other words, in a state of flow. However, we had tools up until that point that required more time and energy to get into that state of flow, and then maybe we couldn't maintain it for more than 5 minutes. So we were given this infinity wave as a way to quickly and easily snap into that state
Hmm.
and hopefully be able to maintain it no matter what. It is the speed of it that is part of the gift, because as we know, time has been speeding up
Yes.
and it's not showing any signs of slowing. So this is a tool for the future, for the present and the future. And back then, it was a tool more for the future, but we were getting our training wheels on, let's say, to learn how to work with it.
Well,
So
I
it
can see
is,
how we
I
need
will,
that right now.
well, it's so interesting because I did look all during 2011 as I was starting to teach these workshops. I looked for the infinity sign everywhere. Obviously, I thought, well, it's not just coming to me, it must be coming to others. I couldn't find it, believe it or not.
Wow.
It was not in packaging, it was not in jewelry, it was not in logos. It was nowhere to be found.
Wow.
And I kept scratching my head. I'm like, I know I can't possibly be the only one who's receiving this.
Right.
And the first week of January 2012, remember it said it would be wrapping around the planet and anchoring in?
Hmm.
Well, the first week of January 2012, I went to get a cappuccino and somebody handed it back to me with a figure eight in the foam.
Wow.
And I was like, okay,
Here
we're
we
off to
go.
the races. Here we
Here
go.
we go. Wow. That's an incredible story.
Well, it's true. And
I believe
I
it.
also came to understand with the very first vision, when it talked about a push of evolution, and believe it or not, back in 2010, this is the November 2010, we were not thinking about evolution as something that was happening here and now. Evolution happens in the background, it's a slow process, and we're kind of involved with it, but not really. It's a much bigger trend, so to speak. But what they were telling me is that this push was going to be speeding things up. And I came to think about the fact that if that's happening, if evolution is moving to the foreground, then perhaps we are going to be able to have something to say
Right.
about how we evolve. And in that sense, then I would call that conscious evolution. Now, believe me, these were terms that I was struggling to come up with so I could communicate what I thought was happening.
Right.
And again, I went to the internet and I searched and searched for conscious evolution, and I could not find it anywhere except for dear Barbara Marx Hubbard, who had mentioned it in one of her writings and something she was teaching, although it sounded very different from what I was gleaning from my guides who were taking me through this process. So I named our little company the Wave Energy Center of Conscious Evolution. And I had no idea what that was going to mean.
Wow.
And I was told that I had to spread this to the wide world. And at the time, I was living next door to a sheep farm in rural Massachusetts. And I was like, no way.
See, yeah, it seems very out of place.
It's like, I could barely do an email on my computer, and I just said, well, look, you're going to have to handle this because I have no means. And please also, this is very highfalutin, language and directive that is way beyond, my habit, let's put it that way. And I had to grow into it, but I just kept putting one foot in front of the other anyway. So that's I think that answers your question, because now
absolutely.
we are today, and we need this technology, this energy technology, more than ever.
It's funny you talk about how everything started speeding up, because I have often felt very behind, because especially a lot of the people I've interviewed over the last 6 months, like we're all in the same age group, but they all started their awakening 10, 20 years before me. And when I started mine, it was 2022. And my mentor at the time was helping me through the beginning stages. And about 6 months in, she goes, I can't even help you anymore. She goes, you're being fast forwarded for something. She says, you are so far beyond where I am. And she says, and the downloads that you're getting and the information you're coming up with, she goes, is so far past where I am right now. She goes, I can't even help you anymore. And I've felt that, because right now I kind of feel like mentally I'm kind of where a lot of the people I'm interviewing are. I understand most of the concepts. My life has changed dramatically since then. And yeah, that makes sense. Wow.
Well, there's a wonderful story that I heard along the way, and it had to do with some monks in a monastery, in Tibet. This is some time ago, and they're out there praying from dawn till dusk, into the night, in all kinds of weather, and doing their best to evolve and become more and more refined, and you know how it goes.
Right.
And these two monks one day went down into the village, and as they're approaching a street vendor who was selling some kind of food, they saw him receive grace, basically receive a complete download. They just watched this man suddenly go into ecstasy and have all knowledge and all learning and all, omniscient kind of.
Right.
And this can happen suddenly like that. And, the monks were sitting there kind of astounded. And they brought him back up to the monastery and said, look at this man. He has just received all this wisdom, all in one bolt of lightning. And this man was then placed at the very head of the monastery in the hierarchy of things. And the two monks were like, wait a second, we've been doing this year after year after year, and he just gets that, and he gets to go to the head of the class.
Right.
And the head of the monastery, explained to him, there's no rhyme or reason to how we become enlightened. It can happen over time. It can happen in a flash. And so for you, Jessica, to start to awaken in 2022 and go to the head of the class is exactly how things can happen. And so part of the reason that we get hung up is that we've all been trained to think in a linear, hierarchical fashion.
Right.
We go to kindergarten, then we go to first grade, then we go to second grade, then we graduate, then we go to college, then we graduate, then, that there's a step ladder going forward in our lives. And that we become so entrained in that we actually apply that to everything. And unfortunately, that's not how spirituality works.
Right.
It's nonlinear. And anything can happen. And in fact, it's almost like the street vendor, better to not have to unlearn a whole lot, to instead come in fresh and not have to undo. Well, I remember 30 years ago when I learned this, or 40 years ago when I learned that, and that doesn't jibe with what I'm learning right here today. And that, because then there become inner conflicts and all of that. So I think it's beautiful. It doesn't matter when it happened. Mm-hmm. When the wave appeared to me, I was 55. And I kept saying to them, why are you giving me this task at this time in my life? Shouldn't you give it to somebody who's 25 or 30?
Right.
And they said, well, they don't have the breadth and the wisdom, because I had been on a spiritual path since I was a kid.
Right.
So I had some foundation, let's put it that way, but I didn't have a lot of fixed beliefs. And so I think, in a way, I was like a good, yeah, in a way, I wasn't
a good vessel.
I wasn't all that happy about it, but at the time, but now, of course, I understand that that's what I signed up for, and I'm incredibly grateful that I did.
Well, I appreciate that perspective. Thank you so much for sharing that story, because that just made me feel, it's I don't feel as behind as I did before. I questioned it, but at this point, I'm just like, what it is, what it is. But let me just ask you. Many of my listeners are sensitive empaths who feel the weight of the world deeply. You described the wave, like you said, as a watery flow of loving compassion that is incorruptible. How can a sensitive person use the wave in a practical day-to-day moment, say when they walk into a crowded room or read bad news, to stay in their power rather than get drained?
Well, that is exactly what it's here for. It's got 1,001 uses and things that I haven't even dreamed of. So let's just start with that. The infinity wave, for me, has two aspects that are very clear. One is what happened during the first workshops when I received the initial practices, what I call the original practices. And these were 9 practices that, once I looked back on the entire workshop, created as a step-by-step blueprint for making a leap in your evolutionary state, in your spiritual evolution. So these are deep practices that help you to move along in that state. That's one piece of the infinity wave. And that's really what I was being taught in the very beginning. There's another aspect of the infinity wave that I call the daily wave. And that's how to answer your question, to use it in everyday life. So if you imagine this figure eight of flowing water, and it could be any size, it could be any color. And in fact, let's remember that it is an intelligent energy. So when I use it, I don't even imagine necessarily what color it is or anything like that. I let it speak to me and show up in the way that it knows would be perfect for this situation.
Okay.
So it's very much, for me, working hand in hand. In the beginning, people will probably want to just use a beautiful aqua figure eight of flowing water and then play with it until that starts to happen. They start to realize, oh, it's dancing with me. I'm not just directing it. But let's just say you're starting off with this. The wave can be any size, so it can fit neatly into your heart center. It can stretch from your head to your down to your sacrum to fill your torso. It can go from the head to the heart. It can take you, if it centers itself in your solar plexus or your heart center, it can bubble up over your head, let's say 6 feet, and then down into the earth in equal amounts. So that now you are in connection because the water is flowing. You are connecting with the above and the below, and it can continue to grow until it goes down to the center of the earth or up into the space, you can connect with the sun, the planets, the moon. You can, although I don't recommend the moon, but you can connect with anything and be in a state of flow. Now, this is the important thing. So when we are in a state of love and compassion, which is inherent in the water, okay, the figure eight itself is a geometry that is powerful. It's been used for millennia. It's used in healing. It's used to represent balance. It's magical in and of itself. And when you add the water, now you're adding an intelligence, you're adding a consciousness, let's say, that we still haven't defined. There's still scientists scratching their heads over water. And water is everywhere in the universe. It's coming into our atmosphere every day in the form of space balls that melt and provide moisture into our heavens. It's an incredible element. And so
I'm a
I
water
think
baby. I
to
love it
give
too.
us the wave in the form of water is not a mistake.
Right.
Because it also represents the flow. It represents staying loose, staying flexible.
Right.
So you add all these things together, you place that infinity wave in your heart center. Let's say if you're starting to get upset about something, you put it in your heart center, either horizontally or vertically, whatever appeals to you and appears to you. And just let that water go. You could take your finger in the beginning just to trace it, just to get a sense of how the movement is going. What I like to do is observe the wave. Oh, I see what color it is today. Oh, I see how fast the water is moving. Now, if you're upset about something, then I recommend going ahead and turning up the rate of the watery flow, because it's going to take care of the issue. The love and compassion is in it. You don't have to manufacture those feelings. But what starts to happen when you run the wave like that is you can feel your whole body relaxing and returning to a state of equanimity, because you're delivering to yourself love and compassion. You're inviting that in. You don't have to feel it. It's just coming in. This symbol carries it.
Right.
Okay. So that's one thing. And I can give an example, a really good example of that working. The other thing you can do with the wave, and there are many things, as I said, is you can run it from your heart to another person's heart. And you don't have to tell them. And that's not an invasion of their being. A lot of light workers get worried about that. When I asked the same question early on when I was being taught this aspect through my guidance. And the answer was, there isn't a person who could not benefit from more love and compassion.
Oh, that's true.
if for any reason they are not open to it, the water, it'll flow right past them. But most 99.9% of people need that love and compassion. So when you start to run it from your heart to theirs, now you're delivering love and compassion. And guess what? You're receiving it back. So
Oh,
the combination of that flow state starts to level out the playing field between the two people. It's also a beautiful way to connect with your intimate other. Um, it's it is remarkable how it can calm down a conversation within seconds. It now you can also, when you're in traffic, you're starting to get irritated, run the wave from your heart all the way out through all the cars and trucks and just let it flow out there. You start to calm down and the traffic starts to flow. It's it's
wow.
kind of amazing. Um, but you can use it standing in line at the grocery store. You can use it if you see somebody across the way getting upset or a baby crying. I can't tell you how many emails I've had from people on a plane who say there was this baby crying three, rows behind me, and I just sent them the wave, and the baby stopped, and everything was fine. Or they're flying and there's turbulence. You send the wave out ahead of the plane to clear the turbulence. The plane comes back to calm. It's I've done that a
Wow.
lot. Um, it's it's really remarkable. We are just not aware of how, and I don't like to use this word but how powerful we can be with our consciousness.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't mean that in brute force, brute strength,
I know
but
exactly how you mean it. Absolutely.
we really are limitless when we drop our own parameters of what is and isn't possible.
And you work
And
with energy? Absolutely. As an energy healer, I get that completely. I will send that out to people. And I've done that. I've walked into a room where two men were actually arguing in a store. And I just standing there as an observer, just started sending out this energy of love and of compassion, of understanding and of empathy and all this. All of a sudden, the manager walks out. Then he comes back and he looks right at me, and it almost like he felt his whole tone changed.
there
His
you go.
whole tone changed to the point where the guy that had been arguing with him, he goes, "You know what, miss, come over here, please." He saw him looking at me, and he was like, "Let him take care of you first, and then I can finish afterwards." And both of them, like totally different people. And at the time, I didn't even know what I was doing. I just knew that that's how I felt, and if that's how I felt, maybe I could share it.
Well, that's it. That right there is the wave in action. And you didn't have that imagery, but you were tapping into the same field, in my opinion. And look, we've had love and compassion available to us on the planet for a very long time. So it's not like those are new
Concepts,
concepts,
right?
right? What's a little different and what you demonstrated and now what everybody can use, because not everybody can conjure that up. So if we have a symbol we can work with, then it just makes it easier, it makes it more available to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
um, so the one of the things that happened along the way is I started to channel, and I had a dim view of channelers before this.
That's why you
Uh,
got it.
I was like, not because of any failing on their part, not at all. More because I understood, and I'm getting such I'm getting a downdraft right now. Coming, I'm getting such a downdraft. I'm like, folks, okay, you're just laughing at me. So I'm sorry. But I, anyway, and I understood that the a human being has a field, and that the information was coming through that field. It had to come through that field. And as a result of coming through that field, it was going to get distorted to some degree.
Right.
So I had well, when I listened to channelers, I listened with a very fine-tooth comb, let's put it that way, where I would search for the nugget that felt to me as truth. And there was usually only one or two. The rest of it was coming through the personality of the person. Of course, and I don't disparage them, but I like, okay, well, it was worth it listening for that nugget. That's good. So I never thought of myself as that, let's put it that way.
Right.
And when I was told to create these workshops, and I had no idea what the heck I was doing, I would sit down with my dowsing rods every week with my dear friend who was transcribing. And I would just think, well, hey, I'm just going to start asking questions because I don't know what else to do because I am really in the dark here. And all of a sudden, my dowsing rods would slow down, and then these deep voices would start to come through me, and slow, deep voice, and these words, I would see them dropping into my mind, into my consciousness, kind of like when you have those 8 balls and you shake them, and then something bubbles up into
Yes.
a little window.
That's not,
It's like that.
that's kind of like how I get my visions. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
understand that. Yes.
And so these words would appear out of the darkness, and sometimes I didn't like the word, and I'd try to bat it away, shake the ball again, like, go away, I don't like that word. And they would bubble up again. Anyway, I stopped resisting. And then I realized, oh, these practices are coming out in perfect language I didn't use, a beginning, a middle, and an end, taking us on a journey. Like, they were beautiful.
Right.
And there was no way that I was conjuring those up.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no way that my higher self, because I'm like, well, is this just my higher self talking to me? Who's talking to me? And no, it wasn't. It was something else. And I didn't know who else for a couple of years until I started to work with a device that helped me to identify who was speaking to me. And the reason I'm telling you this is because of what you mentioned. You went into that room and you beamed love and compassion. And I want to say that the love and compassion that has been available to us until the last 15 years was operating at a frequency. This is my understanding. Okay, so everybody, I always say, get your belief bucket out. Okay, this might not fit into your belief system, so just put it in the belief bucket if this doesn't jibe with you, but stick with me for a little bit. So what I was told was that the frequency of love and compassion that had been introduced around the time of Yeshua, of Buddha, and all of those, that wave of open spirituality, right,
Mm-hmm.
was a 7th dimensional version, which is exactly what the planet needed at that time and had not experienced until then, at least in this iteration of our history.
Right.
We know there's prehistory, and probably they had access to all kinds of things, but in our iteration of history, this was an introduction of 7th dimensional love and compassion through these great teachers. Now we were ready for the 10th dimensional version. And so and Yeshua showed me that the Christian symbol, and this is not a Christian thing, the infinity wave is non-denominational. Mm-hmm. It stands with and supports and enhances any philosophy or religion or spiritual belief. And that has been tested because I've had many, many people from different backgrounds use it to their betterment. It enhances their belief systems. So, but what Yeshua was showing me was that the fish, the symbol of Christianity, if you continue the tail, you get an infinity sign. It's the next iteration of love and compassion that we are ready for. Now, when I was told this, of course, I said, you've got to be kidding me. no, that's a bridge too far
Right.
for my little mind. So I invite you and your listeners to do with you what you will. This is just what I was told. And
That's
in a,
beautiful.
in a sense, it's, I can live with it, as a possibility. I wrote this book, and in the book, I describe how I hold these ideas. Um, I like to think of myself as holding a bunch of helium balloons.
Hmm.
Each of those balloons represents an idea or a belief or a thought or a question mark. And so when I hear something like that, the infinity wave is the next iteration of love and compassion that is needed for the planet now and going forward. I put that in a thought balloon. And I go, you know what? That could be true.
Right.
I can't prove it. I don't know for certain, but it could be true. And so I'm going to keep it in my thought balloon bunch, because as soon as I pull that into my field, into my being, into my body, it becomes a belief and it starts to become concretized, not fluid. And we have certain things that we do because we've experienced them as truths. We hold them to be true, and I say yes to that. But there aren't that many when you think about it.
No.
There are really only a handful of things we can absolutely say, this is true. The rest of them can float outside as potentials, as could be's. And, and that way it kind of keeps the mind clear and uncluttered by things that might even conflict, right? I can
Right.
hold multiple realities at the same time. And that is one of the gifts of this 10th dimensional energy. Because when you introduce 10D into 3D, the effect is going to be that 3D pops up out of its low ceiling of possibility and into something else. Now, we don't know 40, 50, 60, we can't say, doesn't matter. What matters is we break free from the laws, in a way, the held down, compartmentalized aspects of 3D, and we open into more possibility. As soon as we do that, now we're in touch with something much bigger, even undefined, but we have contact with bigger thinking,
Right.
more problem solving, more nuance, more capability to be multifaceted, more capability to be guided. And it's kind of magical. It's like going from a two-dimensional book to a 3D pop-up book.
Right. Right.
So that is one of the gifts, if this makes any sense at all, of this energetic. When we apply it to, as you said in the beginning, everyday life, we don't want to be confined to the box of 3D. We want to have way more options when we think about and feel into how to work with a situation.
I love that. Thank you. Now, I just want to ask you, Hope, you have such a profound title as a midwife to the afterlife. In our culture, we often fear death and the unknown. How has working with the infinity wave changed your perception of that final transition? And what comfort can you offer to those who might be grieving or fearful of that ultimate journey?
Well, I have used the infinity wave with people who are transitioning. I have found it, I believe, to be useful in loosening their spirit from their physical body. And I can't prove it, but I think it's been helpful. I think it's also really beautiful to introduce to someone in that state, because it helps them to calm down. The infinity wave, the immediate reaction of bringing the infinity wave into your field, into anybody's field, is restoring a sense of calm and peace. It's very soothing. Now, it can also pack a punch, which I can tell a story about that too. But for those who are transitioning to ease fear, then it's just a beautiful thing to imagine. I also use it for myself in those situations because each person's journey is so different and fraught often with things that are left unsaid and all of that. So part of being a midwife to the afterlife is you working with the family, the loved ones, the helping people to come to a resolution in a way. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what needs to be said needs to be said. And even if the person is in a coma, those things can be said because there is the spirit is listening. So I'd help to guide people along the path. There are many people who are very much in denial. I can't tell you how many people are in denial because our culture does not support inviting death into the room on a daily basis.
Right.
Like the Buddhists do. But it is essential that we do so. It is essential that we remember how precious our lives are and treat each day as if it is our last so that we don't waste it.
Like it's a gift. Absolutely.
It is. So now the other, one thing I like to do with the wave, and this is good for meetings or courtrooms or surgeries, I like to put the wave as if it's a ceiling fan. And I place it in the room in my imagination to operate before anything happens, before people even get there. During the lockdown years when there was a lot of contention between families and when people could gather for Thanksgiving and things like that, there was just a lot of disruption with different held beliefs and this and that. So I recommended people to put the infinity wave as a ceiling fan, multi-pedaled, into the house wherever the Thanksgiving was going to be held to provide a sense of ease and flow. And person after person wrote me to say, you know what? Everything went swimmingly. We had the best time we've had in a long time. So that can really help. And I just want to mention that in terms of packing a punch, and this is the story that I think you referred to.
The one in the intro, that my teaser, because I'm glad that if you're bringing that
Yes.
up, I am ready for it, because you said that the infinity wave can alter reality as we know it, just like magic, and that you've witnessed a 180-degree shift in a nanosecond. So please share that story with us now, the moment where you saw this magic happen and logic simply just could not explain this outcome.
Okay. And by the way, there have been others like this, but this was the most dramatic. So I had a friend who required some very special surgery on her neck. It required nerve, muscle, and bone surgery. There was only one person who could do that. He was in Los Angeles. We were living in Massachusetts. So I said I'd be her advocate. We flew to LA. And she had read a book on hypnosis before surgery. And she had written down on a little piece of paper, as the book had suggested, what she wanted the anesthesiologist to say to her as she was going in to put to sleep, go down for her surgery, and what she wanted the doctor to say as she came out to ensure better outcomes. So she had this written down on a beautiful piece of paper, and we went through the whole process of checking into the hospital, and she was finally on the gurney with her little cap on and hospital gown, and I'm sitting at the foot of the bed, and we're just waiting for the anesthesiologist. Waiting and waiting, and finally in comes this middle-aged woman, holding a clipboard, and she was wearing an unusual surgical cap. They usually just, a little thing that pops down over the head like a beanie almost.
Right.
Excuse me. Hers looked like a mini pizza hat. It went up and puffed out, and it had little red flecks on it. It was like, wow, they're bringing fashion into the surgery now. So she walked to the other side of the bed opposite me and never looked up from her clipboard. She started to just rattle off a whole bunch of medicalese. We're operating on this and that, and she just, went off as if she was robotic.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way I can describe it. Deep freeze robotic. No connection with patient whatsoever. No warmth, no life, no light, nothing. Well, I looked at my friend and I could see that her lip was starting to tremble. And I thought, oh, this is not good. Because she was nervous,
Right.
understandably. And that's one slip and you're paralyzed. This is not an easy thing.
Right.
And so I looked at this woman and I thought, I don't really like this picture. I want a different one. So I was in my head and I said the words, I like your hat, just like that. No inflection, no anything, just very flat. And at the moment that I said those words, I felt from my solar plexus as if I was being punched from the inside, this pop. And I watched the woman's head pop up, spin to my friend, say, hey, babe, how you doing? I'm going to take care of you today. I love taking care. Oh, look what you have for me. It looks like a recipe. It's so beautiful. Is this what you want me to say? I love doing this for people. And yes, I'll say it when you go.
Wow.
She completely changed it was a nanosecond. And both my friend and I, and thank God I have a witness, because our mouths dropped open. And I always say, those cartoons where the eyeballs would pop out of the head? That's what we look like. And we were just dumbfounded. She went from being this dry sponge to being completely wet, just brimming with love.
And enthusiasm, joy.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I did not intend, well, I want the infinity wave to go, blah, blah, blah. I didn't do that. The wave knew what was needed.
Wow.
The other thing was that this poor gal, who knows how many hours she'd been up, she had 6 kids at home, who knows what she had been through to put her into a state like that.
Right.
But when supplied with this love and compassion that was so pure, she absolutely rose to her highest and best self and took a wonderful care of my friend. So this is why I say we don't always know. And a year before that, I might have said, my friend is really nervous.
Right.
I would have done what I would have done in 3D. I would have, this was the December, 1 year later from the wave's arrival. So I had done 3 workshops over the course of 2011. So I had changed a lot.
Right.
It didn't even occur to me to be that other person. I just kind of wanted the magic to happen. I didn't know what would happen, but I was like, I don't like this picture. I want a different one, without judgment. It just. So that is one example of what can happen. And I've used it many times since in, other situations. So, and other people have too. And I get those stories all the time. So it kind of bends the boundaries of what we think is possible, as I said before. And once we drop those boundaries, we just play with the idea of dropping those boundaries. We don't have to get all serious about it. Just go, well, gee, I wonder if that would work in this situation. Let's give it a shot.
Right.
And try it out and see what happens.
Right.
Be surprised.
And you could be very, very nicely surprised. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love playing with energy. I say it all the time. Back when I was in the States and I was driving, every time I was getting ready to before I would leave my house, I would just throw out there. I foresaw everything. I'm going to have the best drive today. There's not going to be any traffic. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. I'm going to get straight there. When it's time to come home, there's going to be no traffic coming back home. And everything would always work out exactly like that.
Exactly right.
People would always
And
say to me,
now
like,
you
are
can
you the
just,
only person in the world who never gets traffic? Because I kind of just throw it out there.
exactly. And now you can use the wave to do it. You just send the wave out on your journey and let it run. And then you just go about your day.
You know what's funny? I have to tell you, about 6 months ago, I've had this very strong desire to put an infinity symbol on my wrist as a tattoo.
It is the most popular tattoo for women.
There's
Do
got to
it.
be a reason for it. There has to be a reason for it. Absolutely. Well,
Well, think of all the logos. Think of everything
yeah.
that has the infinity in it now. People don't know why. It's in the zeitgeist. It's in the field. It's now a morphogenetic thing. It's here. It's in our world. And now we know, we can use it to our benefit.
Well,
You
now
know.
I know I can use it to my benefit. Now I feel like I've got two little, guns in my holster. I have one more question before I let you go. Beyond the wave, you are a master of intuitive dowsing, like you mentioned. Now, we do often think of dowsing as, back in the day, just finding some water, but you use it to access universal wisdom. For someone listening who struggles to trust their own intuition, how does the physical act of dowsing act as a bridge to verify that inner voice? And I'm curious, what is the most surprising truth you've ever uncovered with your rods?
Oh golly. I don't know how I'm going to answer the second question, but the first question, because it's like, the first question is, I really love to encourage people to learn to douse, because for the very reason that it helps to grow the intuition. It is, for me, it is. If I start to douse for somebody, like, that's how I counsel people now with dowsing, because it is a confirmation of usually what they already know, but isn't kind of fully bubbling up into their conscious mind. It's a knowing that's under the surface. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But what's beautiful about how I'm using the dowsing, and I just don't mean to toot my own horn, but it works out that we get very specific about things. So you can have a general notion about something, but then when you douse, you can get very specific. And for me, it opens my channel, so I start to hear words and see things, and the dowsing rods steer us in the right direction. Let me know if I'm hot or cold. Let us know if that's half right, 25% right. Is it right physically? Is it mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all four, or maybe just one or two? We get very, very specific, and we start to get a picture of the why, which is something you don't often get with dowsing. You get the yes or no
Right.
often, but it's a great way to start, because when you have a hunch and then you douse about it, and the dowsing rods say yes emphatically, or even yes 50%, you go, I can trust this hunch of mine, but let's get more specific. And you keep asking questions and so on until you get down to what I feel is the nugget. So I encourage people to do it. Now, I get a lot of people who say to me, I've been using a pendulum for years,
You must have
but
read
I
my
don't,
mind, because that's what I was
yeah,
just thinking. And I've learned how to
I
use it in a
don't
specific
trust
way.
myself. I don't trust myself because I might be moving the pendulum. And so that is one reason why I recommend dowsing rods, the L rods. You're holding a sleeve, and the rods operate independently inside them.
Mm.
So you're holding your hands very steady and they move. And for me, that's a cleaner way to know you're getting specific answers correctly.
Right.
And also, it's more nuanced, and also it's faster than a pendulum.
Okay.
So I use a pendulum for certain things, for healing work, for clearing a room, for clearing space, for doing all kinds of things like that. And they're wonderful for using with dowsing charts. I have a whole course actually that I teach on dowsing. um, but so there is a use for pendulums for sure. And some people never want to let go of their pendulum, and they're only going to use a pendulum, and that's fine.
I bond with mine by sticking it in my bra.
Yeah,
That's how we bond.
yeah. It's like fine. I love to teach people how to use the rods though, because it not only is for me more specific, more fast and quicker, but it's also something you can use in the field. So if you want to go and talk to a tree or a rock or an animal or find water or whatever, you can do it very easily with the rods, and uh, and it's exciting. So to me, it's an all-purpose tool, and I love to help people learn how to do it so that they can grow their intuition.
I'm going to have to look into that for myself. Like I said, I've been a pendulum person now since I've started. And I've even learned how to recognize that, like you said, giving it a percentage because of the way it'll spin in a small circle or it'll spin all the way out. So I kind of get those, okay, this is a strong yes on this question versus, okay, maybe we need to ask this question a little bit differently and see which way this goes. So I'll have to look
Yeah,
at
and
those dowsing rods.
it's really this is an ancient art
Mm-hmm.
that grew out of feng shui, which is an ancient art, and maybe the first of its kind on the planet. Who knows? But it is. I consider it a lifelong study. So learning how to ask the questions, how to get outside of any preconceived notions, any assumptions, how to make oneself a clear vessel to receive the information. Like there's a lot to learn about it, and as an art form, like in any divination, really, it's something that can continue to grow as you learn more and more about it. So I do think I wish everybody did it. Let's put it that way. It would be really useful for anybody's life.
Absolutely. I've said that about the pendulum. So I just might have to go a little bit further, take my work a little bit further and jump into dowsing. Hope, this has been such an expansive conversation. I truly feel like my own frequency has shifted just by listening to you. I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your work with us.
Oh my gosh, it's been a blast, and I loved your questions. So thank you so much, Jessica.
You're welcome. Thank you. But before we let you go, where can our listeners find you? Where can they buy your book, The Infinity Wave, and perhaps learn more about your dowsing workshops?
Well, I've made it simple. My website, YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff is all the same. Spread Infinite Hope. So it's spreadinfinitehope.com, et cetera, et cetera. And my book can be found anywhere online, Amazon and all those things. And I did that so that international people could get it. And I also have an audio book, which some people like better. I read it myself, so whatever, you could try it out. And yeah, I think that's it.
Well, I will make sure to have all those links in the show notes for the listeners. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you, Jessica. And thanks to all the listeners out there. And stay wavy, everybody.
Yes. And to you, my listeners, thank you for spending your most valuable resource with us today, your time and your attention. I hope you feel a little lighter, a little more flowed, and a little more connected to that infinite part of yourself. If this episode resonated with your soul, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review because it helps other seekers find this sacred space so that we can grow this community of lights together. Until next time, honor your truth, trust your intuition, and keep awakening your authentic self. I'm Jessica Rooks. Bye for now.